What if I told you that the life you've been dreaming of, the one that feels just out of reach, is not only possible but within your grasp? What if, in just 6 months, you could wake up to a version of yourself that feels more alive, more aligned, and more unstoppable than ever before? This isn't about quick fixes or overnight miracles. This is about showing up day after day with the courage to be imperfect, the willingness to stumble, and the audacity to keep going. It's about understanding that transformation doesn't happen when we're comfortable. It happens when we're brave enough to lean into the discomfort, to sit with the uncertainty, and to say, I'm willing to try. Over the next 6 months, you'll learn that success isn't about being fearless. It's about taking action even when you're afraid. It's about embracing vulnerability as your superpower, because that's where real growth begins. You'll discover that the small, consistent steps you take today will ripple into the life you've always wanted tomorrow. This journey won't always be easy. There will be moments when you'll want to quit, when the weight of doubt feels heavier than the pull of your dreams. But here's the truth. You are stronger than you think, more capable than you know, and more deserving than you often allow yourself to believe. So let's begin. Let's commit to showing up, not just for the big moments, but for the messy, imperfect, beautiful process of becoming. Because the life you want isn't just out there waiting for you, it's within you, ready to be unleashed. Let's transform together. Embrace vulnerability as the birthplace of growth and transformation. This idea is not just a concept, it's a lived experience, a truth that resonates deeply when we dare to lean into it. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's not something to be avoided or hidden. It's the raw, unfiltered essence of what it means to be human. It's the courage to show up as you are, to let go of the masks we wear to protect ourselves, and to step into the arena of life with an open heart. It's in those moments of openness, of uncertainty, of risk, that we find the seeds of our greatest growth. Think about the last time you felt truly vulnerable. Maybe it was when you took a leap of faith, starting a new job, ending a relationship, or sharing a deeply personal part of yourself with someone else. In that moment, you likely felt exposed, maybe even terrified. But if you look closer, you'll notice something else. That moment was also alive with possibility. It was a moment where you were fully present, fully alive, and fully connected to the truth of who you are. That's the power of vulnerability. It strips away the layers of pretense and brings us face to face with our authentic selves. When we embrace vulnerability, we give ourselves permission to be imperfect. We stop waiting for the perfect moment to start chasing our dreams or making changes in our lives. Instead, we start where we are, with what we have, and we move forward. Not because we're sure of the outcome, but because we're committed to the process. Vulnerability teaches us that it's okay to not have all the answers, to make mistakes, and to feel uncertain. In fact, it's in those moments of not knowing that we often discover our greatest strengths and deepest insights. But embracing vulnerability isn't just about personal growth, it's also about connection. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create space for others to do the same. We build bridges of empathy and understanding that remind us we're not alone in our struggles or our dreams. Vulnerability is the foundation of meaningful relationships, the kind that sustain us, challenge us, and help us grow. It's the glue that binds us to one another, reminding us that we're all in this together. Of course, vulnerability isn't easy. It requires courage, the kind of courage that doesn't always feel heroic. It's the courage to say, I don't know, or I need help, or I'm scared. It's the courage to keep going even when every fiber of your being wants to retreat to safety. But here's the thing. Every time you choose vulnerability over fear, you expand your capacity for growth. You become more resilient, more compassionate, and more alive. So as you embark on this 6-month journey of transformation, I invite you to lean into vulnerability. Let it be your guide, your teacher, and your ally. When you feel the urge to shrink back, to play it safe, or to hide behind perfection, remember this. Vulnerability is not the enemy. It's the doorway to everything you've ever wanted. It's the place where courage meets authenticity, where fear meets possibility, and where you meet the best version of yourself. This is where your transformation begins, not in the safety of certainty, but in the beautiful, messy, uncertain space of vulnerability. It's here that you'll find the strength to take the first step, the resilience to keep going, and the courage to become the person you were always meant to be. Commit to small, consistent actions that compound into monumental change. This principle is the quiet engine of transformation, the steady heartbeat of progress that often goes unnoticed, but never goes unrewarded. It's easy to get caught up in the allure of big, sweeping gestures, the dramatic leaps, the overnight successes, the moments that feel like they'll change everything in an instant. But the truth is, real lasting change doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens in the accumulation of small, deliberate choices made day after day, week after week, month after month. It's the power of consistency, the magic of showing up even when it feels like you're not making a difference, that ultimately leads to the life you want to create. Think about the way a river carves a canyon. It doesn't happen in a day or even a year. It's the result of water flowing consistently over time, wearing away rock bit by bit until something vast and magnificent emerges. That's the power of small, consistent actions. They may not feel like much in the moment, but over time they create something extraordinary. The same is true for your life. Every small step you take, whether it's reading a few pages of a book, practicing a new skill, or simply choosing to show up with intention, adds up. It's not about being perfect or doing everything all at once. It's about committing to the process, trusting that each small action is a brick in the foundation of your future. Consistency is also where discipline meets grace. It's about showing up for yourself even when you don't feel like it, but also being kind to yourself when life gets in the way. It's understanding that progress isn't linear, that there will be days when you stumble or fall short, and that's okay. What matters is that you keep going. Consistency isn't about never missing a day, it's about always coming back. It's about building a rhythm that works for you, one that feels sustainable and aligned with your goals. And here's the beautiful thing about small, consistent actions: they build momentum. Every time you take a step forward, no matter how small, you create a ripple effect. You prove to yourself that you're capable of change, that you're stronger than your excuses, and that you're committed to your growth. That sense of momentum becomes its own fuel, propelling you forward even when the path feels long or uncertain. But perhaps the most transformative aspect of consistency is the way it reshapes your identity. When you commit to small, consistent actions, you're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are. Every time you choose to take a step toward your goals, you're reinforcing the belief that you are someone who follows through, who keeps promises to yourself, and who values your own growth. Over time, these actions become habits, and those habits become part of your character. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's stuck or stagnant, and you start seeing yourself as someone who's capable of creating change. So as you move through this 6-month journey, remember this: you don't have to do everything all at once. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to have it all figured out. All you have to do is take one small step, and then another, and then another. Trust in the power of consistency. Trust that every small action matters, that every effort counts, and that every day you show up is a victory. Because when you commit to small, consistent actions, you're not just building a better life, you're becoming the best version of yourself. Cultivate courage to step into discomfort and redefine your limits. This is where true transformation begins, not in the safety of what's familiar, but in the uncharted territory of what's possible. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to move forward despite it. It's the decision to face the unknown, to sit with the discomfort, and to trust that on the other side of that fear lies growth, freedom, and a version of yourself you've only dared to imagine. Think about the moments in your life when you felt the most alive. Chances are they weren't the moments when everything was easy or predictable. They were the moments when you took a risk, when you stepped outside your comfort zone, and when you dared to do something that scared you. That's because discomfort is not the enemy. It's the gateway to growth. It's the space where we stretch, where we learn, and where we discover what we're truly capable of. When we avoid discomfort, we stay small, but when we lean into it, we expand. Cultivating courage doesn't mean you have to take giant leaps all at once. It's about taking small intentional steps toward the edges of your comfort zone, one at a time. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, trying something new that feels intimidating, or simply allowing yourself to be seen in a way that feels vulnerable. Each time you choose courage over comfort, you chip away at the walls that have been holding you back. You prove to yourself that you're stronger than your fears, and you create a new normal. One where discomfort isn't something to be avoided, but something to be embraced as a sign that you're growing. It's important to remember that courage is a practice, not a one-time event. It's something you cultivate over time through repeated acts of bravery. Some days, courage might look like standing up for yourself or setting a boundary. Other days, it might look like asking for help or admitting you don't have all the answers. And there will be days when courage feels out of reach, when the weight of fear feels too heavy to carry. On those days, courage might simply look like getting out of bed and showing up, even when every part of you wants to hide. But here's the thing about courage, it's contagious. Every time you choose to step into discomfort, you inspire those around you to do the same. You become a living example of what's possible when we refuse to let fear dictate our lives. And in doing so, you create a ripple effect. One that not only transforms your own life, but also empowers others to transform theirs. Courage also allows us to redefine our limits. So often we operate within the boundaries of what we think is possible, based on past experiences or societal expectations. But when we cultivate courage, we begin to question those limits. We start to wonder, what if I'm capable of more than I've been told? What if the only thing standing between me and my dreams is my willingness to try? Courage gives us permission to dream bigger, to reach higher, and to refuse to settle for anything less than the life we truly want. As you move through this 6-month journey, I invite you to embrace discomfort as a sign that you're on the right path. When fear arises, don't let it stop you, let it guide you. Let it show you where you need to grow, where you need to stretch, and where you need to trust yourself more deeply. Because the truth is, you are capable of so much more than you realize. You have within you a wellspring of courage just waiting to be tapped. And every time you choose to step into discomfort, you're not just redefining your limits, you're reclaiming your power. Build resilience by learning to rise after every setback. Resilience isn't about avoiding failure or hardship. It's about developing the strength to keep going when life knocks you down. It's about understanding that setbacks aren't the end of the road. They're simply part of the journey. Resilience is what allows us to face challenges head on, to learn from our mistakes, and to emerge stronger, wiser, and more determined than before. It's the quiet force that turns obstacles into opportunities and transforms pain into power. Think about the most resilient people you know. What sets them apart isn't that they never face difficulties. It's that they refuse to let those difficulties define them. They understand that failure isn't fatal, that disappointment isn't permanent, and that every setback carries within it the seeds of a comeback. Resilience is what allows them to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and keep moving forward even when the path ahead feels uncertain. Building resilience starts with a shift in perspective. It's about seeing setbacks not as evidence of your inadequacy, but as opportunities for growth. Every time you face a challenge, you have a choice. You can let it defeat you, or you can let it teach you. Resilience is choosing the latter. It's asking yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how can I use this experience to become stronger? It's about finding meaning in the mess and purpose in the pain. But resilience isn't just a mindset, it's also a skill. And like any skill, it takes practice. It's built through small, everyday actions that strengthen your ability to cope with adversity. Maybe it's developing a daily routine that grounds you, or learning to lean on your support system when you need help. Maybe it's practicing self-compassion, reminding yourself that it's okay to not be okay, and giving yourself permission to rest and recover. Resilience is also about cultivating gratitude, even in the midst of difficulty. It's about finding the small moments of light in the darkness and holding on to them as reminders that better days are ahead. One of the most powerful aspects of resilience is its ability to transform fear into faith. When you've been through tough times and come out the other side, you begin to trust yourself more deeply. You realize that you've survived 100% of your worst days, and that knowledge becomes a source of strength. It gives you the confidence to face future challenges, knowing that no matter what happens, you have what it takes to keep going. Resilience teaches us that we are stronger than we think, more capable than we know, and more resourceful than we often give ourselves credit for. Resilience also connects us to our purpose. When we face setbacks, we're forced to confront what truly matters to us. We're reminded of our values, our passions, and the reasons we started this journey in the first place. Setbacks have a way of stripping away the distractions and bringing us back to our core. They remind us that the pursuit of our dreams is worth the struggle, and that every challenge we overcome brings us one step closer to the life we want to create. As you move through this 6-month journey, you will inevitably face moments of doubt, disappointment, and difficulty. But remember this, those moments are not here to break you, they're here to build you. Every setback is an invitation to grow, to learn, and to rise. Resilience is your ability to answer that invitation, to keep showing up even when it's hard, and to trust that every step forward, no matter how small, is taking you closer to your goals. So when you stumble, don't be discouraged. When you fall, don't stay down. Take a deep breath, remind yourself of your strength, and take the next step. Because resilience isn't about never falling, it's about always getting back up. And every time you rise, you're not just moving forward, you're becoming unstoppable. Celebrate progress, not perfection, as the true measure of success. This idea is a radical shift from the way many of us have been conditioned to think about achievement. We live in a world that often glorifies perfection. Perfect bodies, perfect careers, perfect lives. But the pursuit of perfection is a trap. It's a never-ending cycle of striving, falling short, and feeling like you're not enough. It's exhausting, demoralizing, and ultimately unfulfilling. True success isn't about being perfect. It's about making progress. It's about recognizing how far you've come, even if you're not yet where you want to be. It's about finding joy in the journey, not just the destination. When we celebrate progress, we shift our focus from what's missing to what's present. We begin to see the small wins, the incremental improvements, and the moments of growth that might otherwise go unnoticed. Maybe it's finally sticking to a new habit for a week, or having the courage to speak up in a meeting, or simply showing up on a day when you felt like giving up. These moments matter. They're the building blocks of lasting change, and they deserve to be celebrated. Celebrating progress also helps us stay motivated. When we're constantly chasing perfection, it's easy to feel discouraged because the finish line always seems just out of reach. But when we take the time to acknowledge how far we've come, we create a sense of momentum. We remind ourselves that we're moving in the right direction, even if the steps are small. This sense of forward motion fuels our motivation and keeps us going, even when the path feels long or challenging. Another important aspect of celebrating progress is that it fosters self-compassion. Perfectionism often comes with a harsh inner critic, a voice that tells us we're not good enough, that we need to do more, be more, achieve more. But when we focus on progress, we begin to quiet that voice. we start to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding, recognizing that growth is a process, not a destination. We give ourselves permission to be human, to make mistakes, to learn and to grow at our own pace. Celebrating progress also helps us cultivate gratitude. When we take the time to acknowledge our achievements, no matter how small, we shift our mindset from scarcity to abundance. Instead of focusing on what we haven't yet accomplished, we focus on what we have. This sense of gratitude not only boosts our mood, but also strengthens our resilience. It reminds us that even on the hardest days, there's always something to be thankful for. A lesson learned, a step taken, a moment of courage. Progress is also deeply personal. What counts as progress for one person might look completely different for another. It's not about comparing yourself to anyone else or measuring your success by someone else's standards. It's about honoring your own journey, your own pace, and your own unique path. It's about recognizing that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. As you move through this 6-month journey, I encourage you to keep your eyes on your progress, not on some unattainable ideal of perfection. Take time to reflect on how far you've come, to acknowledge the effort you've put in, and to celebrate the person you're becoming. Remember, success isn't about reaching some distant, flawless destination. It's about the steps you take along the way. It's about the courage to keep going, the resilience to keep growing, and the willingness to celebrate every bit of progress, no matter how small. So when you feel the weight of perfectionism creeping in, remind yourself, progress is enough. You are enough. And every step forward, no matter how imperfect, is a step worth celebrating.